Hey everyone, this is Timmy Gobbles, and today I'm working on a new project. Well, actually, I've been working on it for a while, but today's the day that there's a video. And what I want to do is, I really like roguelikes. Rogue was one of the first games I've ever played. I used to play it on my grandmother's computer when I was a kid, and most of the time I would just run into dart traps and pick up darts until I died, because I thought, those would be valuable for my run. Anyways, so I'm going to pick up the Tiny Dungeon Pack from Kenny because, it's got some stuff. I'm not going to focus on the art too much on this project. Just trying to get the mechanics down, which is, combat, loot, and endless suffering. Those are the components of a roguelike. So this pack's pretty nice. It's got some characters, it has some environments, it has some weapons. It's really got all the pieces you'd want. Or, it even has some little icons. There's like 3 rolling pins and a little marker. Anyways, so let's set the project up. And to do that, I'm going to need some folders in my res folder. So I think the way I'm going to start doing it from now on is I'll have like my art folder that's going to have all the junk that I throw in there, and maybe an audio one, and then I'm going to have a scenes folder, and the scenes folder is going to contain a folder for each different scene that I make. But what I'm going to do is those folders can contain their children. So if I have like a character folder with a character scene in it, and I make a player folder that's a child of character, then I'll leave that in that folder. And I think that kind of organization will make the most sense for me. Okay, and this is kind of like the outline of what I want to accomplish with the game. And there's some missing pieces there, but this is just the brief outline. It's time to set up the character class that's going to be the parent for the player and enemy, and probably NPCs as well. So I think I start off with the character body 2D, and I'll just slap one of the PNGs on there just to give it something we can look at. And needs a collision shape, and while I'm at it, I'm going to fix the viewport. So now in main scene, we're going to slap that character on there just to get a look at it, and we need a camera, so we're going to attach that to the character just so that when we finally fix up movement, so now we're going to set up the script for character, and I'm going to throw in some like dummy functions like character physics process and character ready. And these are just going to get called and ready in physics process. And this is just so when we make children, we can override those functions without losing functionality that's inside of process and physics process and ready and stuff like that. Okay, so I'm going to put some area hitboxes. These are going to be for the weapons or shields or whatnot, just to kind of template it up so that they're there when we need them. I might need to change them, but I'm just trying to figure out what I want it to look like. Okay, and we need to add some movement to our character. And both players and NPCs and enemies will have to move, so it's okay to have that in there. That just gets called by the physics process. So if I have like a velocity, I can throw that on there. Now we're going to make a child of character called player, and player is going to need controls. So we're going to add some buttons to our project settings. And we're going to make this player process physics. So then our physics process is going to call player process and character process. So that's kind of how the hierarchy works. Okay, so it moves around a bit. That's great. And now we're going to play with the tile map. So I need to add collision to all the tiles that I think need collision. So like walls need collision, and walls, doors, minecarts, fountains, things of that nature. So it's kind of fun to just kind of go through these and pick out the little corners and put it on. It's really not as tedious as it looks. And there's only like 20 or 30 tiles I have to do. None of them are like that complex shaped. I didn't even really need to do the anvil, probably. And so then when we place these with the tile map, they'll already have that collision baked on them. Maybe baked isn't the right term, but it's what I'm using. Okay, so now I just want to like slap something on main so that I can see if it works, and it doesn't. I can walk right through it. So something is wrong with how I'm moving my player, such that it's ignoring collisions. Okay, so we're trying to figure out whether I need to use get slide or move and slide or move and collide. And I think move and slide ends up working, but oh, I had to switch to a character body. That's sad. All right, there we go. I'm hitting walls and I'm walking on the ground. It's looking pretty awful, but you know, that's how it is starting out. And then I find out that I haven't added any collision to this little fountain basin, so I'm gonna have to go at that real quick. There we go, look at that. Next, what are we doing next? I think it's time for a weapon. So I need to pick out a sword region from that tile map. And it's actually clipping some of the chest. So I was having some issue figuring out what's going on there, but it was pretty easy just to make the region a little smaller. It still looks bad, but you know, it's slightly better. All right, basic animation time. So when our character swings, we want the sword to go like kind of move a little bit. And when we hold the shield button, we want the character to raise the shield. So those are the two things I'm gonna try to do real quick. And why did that come up? I don't know, whatever. And I like giving the animations like an index number. So that way when I like maybe make a chain attack or something, I can have like sword swing 2 or sword swing 3, etc. All right, so I need to play around with the rotation, and I need to make sure that it's also rotating the hitbox if I so choose. I think what I actually have it do is activate the hitbox, or maybe I just kind of didn't get there yet. All right, so there's our thing. It goes back a little bit and then goes down, and it's just really, really basic. Little basic sword swing. I should make that the sound effect, probably. All right, so the hitbox is a little small, so I'm gonna make it a little bigger just so it'll be easier to hit things. And next is I need to figure out how to get my character to face the correct direction. And I usually just use scale X for that. So if scale X is negative, it's actually gonna flip left, right, like everything that's a child of that character sprite, because I think that's the scale I was setting. Yeah, the character sprite. Why did I put scale there? Oh, okay, there, I fixed it. Because when we're moving to the left, we want everything to be flip-flopped, pretty much. So there we go. Going to the left, going to the right. Something's wrong. I'm like caught in that animation. Oh, I don't have the reset pose set up correctly. All right, so trying to link up that attack button with what I was trying to do there. Yep, and I need to fix the reset pose. Okay, now I'm working on block. So block, I need to flip the character left, right, except for the body, because I want the shield in front and the sword behind when I'm blocking. And then I want to raise it a little bit just to show that it's up and doing its thing. And maybe like wiggle it around a little bit while if it's being held. And so block 1 is the character raising it, and then block 2 is the character like holding it. Neither of them is working very well. And then I thought like to lower the shield, I could just play the animation backwards. But I was having an issue with that. I'm not really sure what the problem was. Okay, and oh, I think clear Q was helping. I'm not sure. All right, so now for enemies, I want to set up a big old repository of information. So I have these rectangle information from the sprite sheet, and I have names for them, and that's as far as I'm at, you know? So if and I was trying to figure out how to initialize, okay, you know what? I'm done with that game. On to the next game. And the reason is because Big Mode Games is doing a game jam this month. And I thought, you know, I've done 2 1/3 games, so I'm ready. I'm ready for the big league. So I grab a couple packs from Kenny involving space shooting things, and then I grab a Hubble telescope image and think, hey, this will make a nice background. But when you zoom in, it's a little fuzzy. So I was trying to play around in GIMP to make it less janky. The one issue is the areas that should be black are really fuzzy. And the other issue is a lot of the features on like the galaxies and stuff were a little fuzzy too. And so I kind of play around with some filters and stuff. And one was this sparkling thing, which is pretty cool. So it makes everything bright, like worse. So look at that. Look at how gorgeous that is. That wasn't the answer. Then it's like, okay, well, let's just go to the color curves and make everything darker that isn't super bright. And that worked really well. Like, look at that. That just went from like doo-doo to, hey, not bad, you know? And yeah, I thought I could like play with some of the other colors, because sometimes the artifacts in the image are on a different spectrum. But I think this turned out pretty good. It's like in the very far back. And I'm gonna make some like little star tiling or tiled images for like the upper layers of the parallax background. All right, so world and players. So I need a world that is just everything, and then a player that is just going to be this really basic ship. So player, I think it's like a static 2D, but it's so far it's just the sprite and then a collision shape. Okay, so I need some buttons. So up, down, left, right. Up, down. Up's going to be make your ship go faster, and down's going to be brake, and then left, right is going to be turn your ship left or right. Now, if you remember previously on this video, I was really smart when I set up character to be a parent class to control like players and enemies and stuff. And I totally whipped doing that here, and I don't even know why. Like, I just did it right. I just did it right, and I'm already off to a weird start. So it's either I make enemy child of player, which doesn't make any sense, or I have to do a lot of coding all over again. Should be funny. Okay, so what am I doing here? Oh, okay, so that get access thing is really cool. So it kind of just takes the difference of the values. So if you're holding the up arrow and the down arrow at the same time, you're going to get 0 for that get access. So you're not going to move anywhere. So it's really useful for like controllers where you have a joystick and you have, you know, it's going to be one of those values, and like, you know, if you want to move left, you have negative on the X value of the joystick, and positive on the joystick value means you want to move right and stuff like that. All right, so I've got turning the ship working a little bit. And now movement is sort of working, but it's a little wonky. Oh, now I've got the dang thing upside down again. Oh, there we go. All right, I can move the ship around a bit. Something is weird with the rotation, and that ended up being a camera issue, which was funny. All right, hey, there we go. So it's sort of working. I can move forward, I can turn more. I can have a bunch of debugging messages in that box on the bottom that don't mean anything to anyone. Okay, next up is, okay, one thing I kind of wanted to do was I wanted the camera to rotate with the player, and it doesn't work with parallax background. And I guess there's workarounds where you can write your own parallax background, but in the scope of the project, I didn't feel like I had time. So the camera is fixed, rotation-wise, because the parallax is, wait. Okay, so it's time to make a projectile. And a projectile is gonna have a sprite. It's gonna be an area 2D because I don't want things to bump it around. Although that would be kind of cool if like a shield, it bounces off of a shield or something. But I can probably code that eventually if I wanted to. Have a little reflecty shield or something. Oh, that would be pretty cool if you had like a shield that reflected enemies' junk back at them. All right, dang it. You convinced me. Add that to the list. All right, and we need some buttons for, so I just kind of added a bunch because I'll need more later. Okay, we need an export variable so we can drop that projectile in. And when we fire the laser, we're gonna want to spawn one of these. All right, the remote transform I'm using to make sure that the hitbox of the laser matches the transform of the sprite. So if I make like a bigger laser, or if I change the rotation of the laser like when I'm firing it. Because we want the rotation of that sprite to match like the rotation of the player, so when it shoots out, it isn't shooting out at the wrong angle. Like here, right? It's not doing it right. That just looks kind of janky. There we go. Look at it go. So it's a little slow, so let's speed it up a bit. 500, so it's like 10 times as fast. And I have it so you can just hold down the button and it'll shoot it. It just controls a Boolean. All right, it's enemies time. What is going on here? Let's see. I've set it up so that I have a list of file names from res, from the art folder, and I can choose the sprite based on the file name. I kind of figured that out. That was kind of cool. Using, I think it was load. Yeah, load sprite paths. And I had it at pick random just because I have that array, and it's like a constant array of just all the locations of the different enemy PNGs. Where's I going with this? Oh, so what does the enemy need to do? So I need to get it so where it moves and it attacks the player. And I wanted it to follow the player too if they're within a certain distance. Okay, so here is projectile. And you see I've made like projectile 1-bit. That's a child of projectile. My idea, so the theme with big mode game jam, the theme was mode. And so part of the reason why I don't have very much accomplished for this project is because the theme was so vague. I had trouble coming up with like what to do. I don't know. There was like a couple days I just didn't feel like doing anything. I was like, what the heck do I do with mode? So here's my idea is when you start the game out, it's gonna be like super basic, kind of 1-bit style. And as you progress and you develop your character and stuff, like the game mode will evolve. You'll be able to see more detail, like that Spacy background I was editing earlier. Your HUD will be different. Maybe like you can do different things with your ship, like strafing, or some kind of dodge mechanic. I don't know. I love dodge rolls and stuff. So how do you implement that in space? It's not even space because it's like 2D. Okay, so here I'm trying to make it to where this laser is just a white rectangle, right? And it eventually curve texture, I think, worked out. Is you make a curve that is just a constant. And there we go. Ta-da! Because placeholder was making it all purple. I didn't want that. And I understand why you'd want your placeholders to be super visible so that they don't end up in production. Next, now that I've kind of built a little bit up, I've made a project outline of what I want to accomplish in the next 2 weeks. I think it's 2 weeks. I think it's like 2 weeks on the dot. Yeah, is it the 15th or the 16th that it's due? Okay, so the gameplay loop is you go around in space and you murder and collect things, and then you go back to your little spaceship, and then you get to upgrade stuff with your loot. Maybe I'll call it like Space Pirate, because now that I'm thinking about it, it sounds kind of space piratey. All right, and so that kind of like encompasses the things I want to accomplish with the project. And it's pretty loose, and it's a little ambitious. I don't know that I'm gonna make it in time, but that's kind of where it's at. All right, next is, I said I need a space station, so I might as well make one of those. And fortunately, there is one in that pack. There's a couple options. So here's one of the basic ones, and it's kind of small, so we'll just make it bigger. And I was building this right on world. I wasn't sure. I should probably make this its own class and put like some turrets on it or something. Okay, so it has a hitbox, and I also wanted to add an area on it so that when you're in that area, you can like interact with it. Maybe have like some action button that would make it so you would turn in the mission or whatever if you're in that zone. Okay, so next is with projectiles. I was like hitting my own ship, so I had to add a exception to it, which I think ended up using groups or something. Okay, so here is kind of the 1-bit style. There's the spaceship. I'm sorry, the space station and the character, and you're shooting the little white lasers. And so now I need to spawn some enemies. And I'm going to do that in world script, because it's the one that controls that scene. And I need a distance at which the enemy stops moving, and a distance at which they, what was it? Oh yeah, like if it's too close, I don't want it to try to keep moving towards the player. And if it's too far, I don't want it to bother the player. Like maybe it can't see them, or maybe it's like, it's too much work. They're all the way over there. Okay, so I need to spawn players within an area such that they'll chase the player. So I have that, and I use an angle and a direction, and then times a distance. So it's like a unit length vector times a random angle, and then times distance, and that would get enemies within that range, but far enough away that they're not like spawning right on top of me. Okay, so now there's an issue to where they don't rotate yet. They follow the player, so that's good, but their sprites aren't rotating. I need to fix that. And I end up doing a little stress test just to see like how many enemies is too many. So I set the spawn time to a tenth of a second. Is it a tenth of a second? Something like that. Anyways, it turned out okay. Oh, this is okay, it's still going. All right, but I can have about as many on the screen as I would ever want. So it doesn't seem to be a big problem, but I haven't really scaled up the functionality of enemies, so I don't really know whether or not this is even a good representation of a stress test. But as you can see, they just keep coming, and the game still runs fine. like they aren't stuttering when they move. Like the frame rate seems smoothish on my really not very performative laptop. It's like a bunch of pollen. This is what I think of spring. Just a bunch of stuff trying to get in my nose. So here's a funny problem. When the character moves past 180 degrees, the enemy has to spin all the way around. How am I going to fix that? So the enemy is coded to turn towards the player, turn to face the player. And using the move toward function, when the goal angle is negative and the current angle is positive, it ends up making this big, almost 360 degree turn. So I do a little if statement and I take the absolute value of the current angle minus the angle that I want to turn towards, because that's the angle that would face the enemy towards the player. And if that angle's bigger than half of a turn, or pi in radians, so if it's gonna have to turn all the way around, then I need to adjust that goal angle, the angle that I want it to move towards. And so the way I do that is, so I want to either add a full turn or subtract a full turn. So if my target angle is positive and my current angle is negative, then I want to subtract a full turn. So I'll end up in that negative area. And to do that, we can use sine. So if the sine of the current angle is negative, then we want to subtract 2 pi. And if the sine of the current angle is positive, then we want to add 2 pi to the goal angle. And then there we go. It's following along, and I do a whole 360 just to check to make sure it doesn't do the weird behavior. All right, and that's all I have for progress of where I'm at now. I've got a ways to go. It's really rough, and I feel like I've started kind of late, but I guess that's the fun of game jams, is the time constraint. So I don't have anything for you guys to play right now. Feel free to follow me on my itch in case like I throw something up randomly. But other than that, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Have a good one.